Emma's Friday had been long, filled with endless emails, phone calls that dragged, and a stack of reports that seemed taller every time she glanced at them. She stayed later than usual, the office mostly empty. Quiet, except for the hum of printers and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. She rubbed her tired eyes, trying to focus, when she heard footsteps approaching. She didn't need to look up to know who it was. Daniel, her boss. The man whose presence always seemed to shift the atmosphere of the entire office. He wasn't the kind of boss who barked orders or kept himself hidden behind closed doors. No, Daniel was present, approachable, but distant in a way that made people wonder about him. He was polished, always neat, and his voice carried a calm authority. People admired him. Emma did too more than she liked to admit. Still working? Daniel's voice broke the silence, smooth but low. Emma straightened, forcing a small smile. Just finishing the quarterly reports. I didn't want to leave them for Monday. Daniel walked closer, his steps measured, his hand holding something. An envelope. She noticed it right away. He stopped by her desk, leaning slightly against the edge as if this moment had been rehearsed. His eyes met hers, and for a brief second, there was something different in them, something unspoken. I have something for you, Kay said simply. Emma blinked, confused. For me? He handed her the envelope. His hand lingered for a fraction longer than necessary, and she felt her chest tighten. She took it carefully, like it might burn her if she wasn't cautious. Open it, he said, his tone casual. But his eyes watching her closely. Her fingers slipped under the flap, pulling out a piece of paper. No, not just paper. Ticket. She read the bold letters, her heart skipping. Paris. A flight to Paris. And not just any ticket. Her name was printed clearly across it. Her throat went dry. She looked up at him quickly, trying to find words, but none came. Paris. She whispered. Daniel gave a faint smile, the kind that didn't reveal everything. I'm flying there next week, and I want you to come with me. For a moment, the room tilted. The reports, the buzzing lights, the entire office seemed to blur around her. The only thing sharp and clear was Daniel, standing there with that calm expression. As if what he had just asked wasn't extraordinary. But it was Paris. It was him. It was everything she had never dared to imagine being offered. She set the ticket on the desk, her hands trembling slightly. I don't understand. Is this for work? His silence was telling. He didn't rush to explain. Instead, he let the question hang in the air as though her asking was more important than his answer. Finally, he said, there's business, yes. But it's not just that. I thought you deserved something more than endless late nights at this desk. His eyes softened and his voice lowered almost to a whisper. I thought you deserved Paris. Her pulse raced. She didn't know what to say. Paris had always been a dream for her, something she saw in movies, something people saved up for years to experience. The city of lights, of art, of romance. But not once in her life had she pictured herself going there because her boss handed her a ticket with her name on it. She tried to steady herself. Daniel, it's unexpected. I know. He didn't move closer, but his presence felt overwhelming, like gravity itself. That's why I wanted to give you time to think. He glanced at the reports on her desk, then back at her. You've worked harder than anyone here. You deserve a break. And maybe, he paused, his eyes locking onto hers again. Maybe you deserve something unforgettable. Her chest tightened. She could feel the weight of his words. They weren't just about a trip. They weren't just about Paris. There was something else hidden beneath them. Something careful. Something daring. She forced herself to speak, her voice unsteady. This isn't just about work, is it? His silence again was louder than words. The way he looked at her gave her the answer she both longed for and feared. It wasn't just about work. Emma's thoughts raced. She thought of the late nights when she caught him watching her as she typed. She thought of the way his tone shifted slightly when he spoke to her, softer, more deliberate. She thought of how, when she laughed at something, his lips would twitch in a way that wasn't quite a smile. But almost now all of those little moments clicked into place, forming a picture she hadn't dared to draw before. And the picture scared her, thrilled her, and left her breathless all at once. She closed the envelope and placed it gently on her desk, as though setting it down would steady her own racing heart. "I need to think," she said, her voice quiet but firm. Daniel gave a single nod, his expression unreadable but not cold. "Of course. Take the weekend. The flight leaves Wednesday morning. If you're there, then we'll see. We'll see." The words echoed in her head, heavy with meaning. With that, he straightened, adjusted his suit jacket, and turned to leave. His steps faded down the hall, the office returning to its quiet emptiness. Emma sat there staring at the envelope, her hands resting in her lap. The reports she had been working on no longer mattered. Nothing did, except the weight of the choice in front of her. Paris, with Daniel. The ticket lay in front of her, glowing under the desk lamp, not just a piece of paper, but a question written in bold letters. A question she wasn't sure she was ready to answer. She leaned back in her chair, her heart still beating faster than it should, and whispered to herself, "What does this mean?" The office stayed silent. The envelope offered no answers, only possibilities. And for the first time in a long while, Emma felt her life had tilted into a place where nothing would ever be the same again. Emma couldn't sleep that night. She turned from one side to the other, her blanket twisting around her legs. The envelope still resting on her nightstand like it had its own heartbeat. The glowing numbers on her alarm clock showed midnight, then 1, then 2. Still, her mind spun in circles. Why had he asked her? Why her and not someone else from the office? She thought of Daniel's calm voice, the way he had said she deserved Paris. The words replayed again and again until they no longer felt real. She sat up and pressed her palms against her face, trying to breathe. Was it really just business? Or was there something he wasn't saying out loud? The thought made her chest tighten with both fear and a strange, fragile hope. Her phone buzzed with a late-night email notification, but she didn't even check it. Work suddenly felt distant, unimportant. Paris wasn't a line item in a report. Paris was a door one that led somewhere. She wasn't sure she had the courage to walk in, too. She pushed back the blanket and walked to the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water. The silence of her apartment felt heavier than usual, as though the walls themselves knew something was changing. She leaned against the counter, staring into nothing, lost in the collision of her thoughts. Daniel wasn't just her boss. He was older, steadier, someone who carried himself with quiet certainty. He wasn't a man who made reckless choices. If he'd offered her that ticket, he had thought about it carefully. That realization both comforted and frightened her. She remembered the first time she had met him, 3 years ago. He had extended his hand with polite confidence, introducing himself in a way that made her feel seen, not just another new hire. Since then, he had always been kind but professional, supportive but distant. Or maybe not as distant as she had once believed. Maybe all those small moments she brushed aside meant something more. Her chest rose and fell quickly as she thought about the way his gaze lingered when she laughed, the way his voice lowered when he spoke only to her. Was she imagining it? Or had he been carrying this quiet weight too? She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. "Stop overthinking," she muttered to herself. But the ticket was real. His words were real. Back in her bedroom, she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the envelope. Paris, a city she had dreamed about as a child, looking at photographs in travel books. She used to imagine herself walking by the Seine, sipping coffee at a cafe, gazing at the Eiffel Tower at night. But dreams were safe when they stayed in books. Reality was different. Her mind darted to the risks. She worked for him. What if people at the office found out? What if this trip blurred lines that should never be crossed? Her career mattered, and so did her reputation. But then, again, wasn't life more than just being safe? She imagined herself saying no, staying home, watching the week pass like any other. She could already feel the sting of regret in that picture, like a dull ache that would never leave. And then she imagined herself saying yes, boarding that plane, stepping into Paris with him by her side. She didn't know what would happen there, but she knew it wouldn't be ordinary. Her heart tugged in both directions. Leaving her restless dot by morning, she hadn't slept more than an hour. She dragged herself into the office, her eyes heavy, but her mind sharper than ever. The whispers of coworkers, the clicking of keyboards, the smell of coffee all felt strangely distant, as if she were floating above her own life. When Daniel walked into the office, she felt her breath catch. He greeted the team as usual, but his eyes flickered toward her for a brief moment, unreadable. Just one glance, but it was enough to stir everything inside her all over again. She forced herself to focus on her screen, typing faster than usual, hoping no one noticed the storm inside her. But all day, her thoughts wouldn't let go. Every email, every meeting, every phone call, it was all background noise compared to the single question that pulsed louder than anything else. Should she go? At lunch, she sat alone at a small cafe near the office, stirring her soup without really eating it. Her best friend Claire called, and Emma almost told her everything. Almost, but the words stayed locked in her throat. How could she explain something like this? How could she put into words the way her heart seemed to leap and hesitate all at once? When she returned to the office, the ticket was still waiting in her mind. It followed her home. It sat with her at dinner. It shadowed her when she tried to sleep again. Days passed, each one faster than the last. Wednesday was coming closer, and she still hadn't decided. On Tuesday night, she stood by her window looking out at the city lights. They seemed to flicker like Paris itself was calling to her. She could almost hear a whisper of something unknown, something daring. She touched the envelope with her fingertips, her hand trembling. She could almost hear Daniel's voice again. "You deserve something unforgettable." What if this was her chance to step into a story she would never forget? The clock ticked, the hours slipping away. She knew she couldn't run from the decision any longer. The plane would leave soon, with or without her. Emma closed her eyes, her heart pounding, and whispered into the silence of her apartment, "Am I ready for this?" The answer didn't come, but her hand still rested on the ticket. And somewhere deep inside her, she knew she had already made her choice, whether she admitted it yet or not. Emma stood at the airport on Wednesday morning, her heart hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. The ticket felt heavy in her hand, as though the decision she had carried all weekend had turned into something solid and undeniable. She had spent every night doubting, imagining, questioning, but in the end, her feet had brought her here. The terminal was crowded, voices blending into a restless hum. Suitcases rolled, announcements echoed overhead, and the smell of coffee and jet fuel filled the air. She searched for him through the crowd, her palms damp, her mind racing. Then she saw him. Daniel. He stood tall in his dark coat, hands in his pockets, scanning the crowd with an expression that was calm, but edged with something softer anticipation. When his eyes found hers, relief spread across his face, subtle but unmistakable. That single look undid her, all the tension of the past days suddenly crashing into the reality that she was here. She had chosen. "You came," he said simply, when she reached him. His voice carried warmth, a quiet note of gratitude that made her chest tighten. Emma gave a small nod, unable to find words. The weight of what she had done, the choice she had made, was too overwhelming to explain. They moved through security, side by side, their steps quiet. No words were exchanged, yet the air between them hummed with something alive, something waiting. On the plane, Daniel offered her the window seat, and she took it, her hands fidgeting with the seatbelt as the engines roared, as the plane lifted into the sky. Up. The city lights of New York shrank below them. Emma pressed her forehead lightly to the glass, staring at the glittering horizon until it disappeared into darkness. A strange mix of fear and excitement coursed through her. She was leaving behind everything safe, everything known, stepping into something uncertain. Daniel broke the silence after a while. His voice was low, intimate against the steady hum of the plane. "Emma, I want to be honest with you. I didn't invite you just for work. I didn't invite you just for Paris." Her breath caught. She turned slowly to look at him. His eyes were steady, his expression composed. But his words trembled with meaning. I've tried to keep things professional, he continued. I told myself it was the right thing to do. But when I thought about Paris, I didn't want to go alone. I wanted you there, with me. Emma swallowed hard, her heart racing. She didn't know what to say, didn't know how to respond. The truth she had suspected was now spoken out loud. And it left her both dizzy and fragile. He leaned slightly closer, careful, his tone gentler than she had ever heard. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. If this is too much, say so, and I'll never bring it up again. But I couldn't miss this chance to tell you. She looked at him, searching his face. His eyes weren't demanding. They were waiting. They held patience, hope, and something else she dared not name. The hum of the plane wrapped around them, isolating them from the rest of the world. Emma finally found her voice, quiet but trembling. Daniel, this isn't easy for me. You're my boss. People would talk, and she paused, her throat tight. I don't know if I can risk it. I know, he said softly. I've thought about that too. But some things are worth the risk. Her chest tightened painfully at his words. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to let herself lean into the warmth of what he was offering. But fear still tugged at her, whispering about consequences, about the lines she would be crossing. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the soft chatter of passengers and the flight attendants moving down the aisle. Emma stared out the window, lost in her storm of thoughts, while Daniel respected her quiet, not pushing, not rushing. When the plane finally began its descent, the glow of Paris appeared below golden streets, winding like rivers of light, the dark outline of the Seine cutting through the city. It was breathtaking. Her chest filled with awe, but also with dread. The moment she stepped into that city with him, everything would change. They collected their luggage in silence. And when they stepped outside, the cool night air of Paris wrapped around them. The city stretched out in front of her, alive with music and chatter. The Eiffel Tower glittering in the distance like 1,000 promises. Daniel hailed a car, and soon they were driving through the streets, the lights of Paris flickering past. Emma pressed her hands together in her lap, the weight of the moment pressing down harder than ever. Finally, Daniel spoke again, his voice steady but quiet. Emma, this trip, I don't want you to see it as pressure. I want you to see it as possibility. Whatever happens here, it's your choice, always. His words caught her off guard. For days she had felt the decision pulling her apart, but now he was handing it back to her, not as a demand, but as a gift. She looked at him, really looked, and saw not just her boss, but a man laying down a part of himself with honesty. The car pulled up to their hotel, and as they stepped out, Emma's heart hammered. The Eiffel Tower was visible in the distance, lit like a crown against the night sky. Paris was here. The moment was here. Daniel carried her bag, walking beside her quietly. He didn't reach for her, didn't touch her. He simply matched her pace, steady and patient. When they reached the hotel lobby, he stopped before the elevator, turning toward her with a softness that made her breath catch. I know this is more than you expected, he said, but I needed you to know how I feel. And now, the rest is up to you. Emma's lips parted, but no words came. The weight of his confession pressed against the thrill of Paris surrounding her. She didn't know if she was ready to answer him, but she knew one thing: she couldn't pretend anymore. Not after this. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. He stepped inside, waiting for her. For a long moment, Emma hesitated, standing still, the city of love glowing outside the glass doors, her heart pounding with the choice that lay before her. She finally stepped forward, into the elevator, into Paris, into the unknown. And as the doors closed, the silence between them was louder than words. The first night in Paris felt unreal. Emma stood at the balcony of her hotel room, the Eiffel Tower glittering in the distance, its golden lights twinkling like stars brought down to earth. The city hummed with life below, laughter spilling from cafes, music floating in the air, the faint sound of car horns echoing off cobblestone streets. She gripped the railing, her heart racing. This was the city she had dreamed about since childhood. But standing here with Daniel just a few doors away, it felt like more than a dream. It felt like the start of something she wasn't sure she could control. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Daniel: "Meet me on the terrace in 10 minutes." Emma's pulse quickened. She glanced in the mirror, smoothing her hair, her hands trembling. She told herself it was just a casual meeting, but deep down she knew it wasn't. Nothing about this was casual anymore. She made her way down to the terrace, where the city stretched endlessly around them. Daniel was already there, leaning against the railing, the light from the tower reflecting in his eyes. When he saw her, he straightened, his expression soft but unreadable. "You came," he said quietly. Emma gave a small nod. "I wasn't going to stay in my room all night." Her attempt at lightness came out shaky, betraying the tension she felt. For a moment, they stood in silence, side by side, the glow of Paris washing over them. Then Daniel finally spoke, his voice low, almost hesitant. "Emma, I've carried this for longer than I should have. Every day I told myself it was just work, just business. But every time I saw you, every time you smiled, I knew it was more. And I can't pretend anymore." Her chest tightened, her breath catching at his words. She had waited, wondered, suspected, but hearing him say it out loud changed everything. He turned to her, his eyes steady but vulnerable. "I care about you. More than I should. More than I tried to let myself. I invited you here because I wanted to know if there could be something between us. Something real." Emma's throat tightened. She gripped the railing, the cool metal grounding her, while inside, her heart spun wildly. She thought of the late nights in the office, the quiet glances, the moments she had brushed aside. They all made sense now, like pieces of a puzzle finally fitting together. "Daniel." Her voice faltered, breaking under the weight of her emotions. "This isn't simple. You're my boss." "If anyone found out, I know," he interrupted gently. "I know all the risks. I know how it looks. But Emma, when I thought about Paris, I realized I didn't care about the risks anymore. What I care about is you. I'd rather face the world honestly than spend another day pretending." The honesty in his voice shook her. She could see the truth in his eyes, not charm, not pressure. It's just raw sincerity. Her tears threatened to fall, though she tried to hold them back. "And what if I feel the same? What then?" Daniel's hand hovered for a moment, hesitant, before he finally reached for hers. His touch was gentle, as though giving her a choice even in that small moment. "Then we don't waste another moment hiding it. Not here. Not in Paris." Her heart pounded, the city around them fading into silence. She looked down at their hands, his fingers warm against hers, and then back at his face. For the first time, she let herself see him not as her boss, not as the man behind the desk, but as someone standing vulnerably before her. A tear slipped down her cheek, and Daniel's expression softened. "Emma, if you tell me no, I'll respect it. If you tell me you want to walk away, I'll let you. But if you tell me yes, then Paris is ours." The tower sparkled brighter in the distance, as though urging her to decide. Emma closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the war inside Hertha, fear of crossing lines, the weight of responsibility, but also the pull of something undeniable. When she opened her eyes again, she saw only him. Her voice trembled, but the words came out clear. "Yes, I don't want to keep pretending either." Daniel exhaled, relief flooding his face, a softness breaking through his usual composure. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a tender kiss to her knuckles, gentle, respectful, filled with meaning. It wasn't a claim. It was a promise. Emma felt her chest expand, the weight of hesitation lifting. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about reports, deadlines, or what people might say. She was thinking about now, about Paris, about him. They stood together on the terrace, the city alive beneath them, the Eiffel Tower glowing like a guardian of their secret. Emma leaned closer, not because he pulled her, but because her heart finally gave her permission. Daniel whispered, "Then let's make this a story we'll never forget." And for the first time, she let herself believe in it. The night wrapped around them, Paris holding its breath as two people who had danced around unspoken feelings finally stepped into them. It wasn't reckless, it was deliberate, honest, fragile. And real. Emma knew tomorrow would bring questions, challenges, maybe even doubts. But tonight, with the city of love shining around her, she chose not to think of the future. She chose only this moment. And the man beside her who had dared to risk everything just to be honest. The city lights blurred through her tears, and Emma whispered, "Paris really is unforgettable." Daniel's smile was small, but it carried the weight of everything he hadn't been able to say before. And in that instant, Emma knew she had made the right choice.